Here, we'll work with live effects, which alter the appearance of an object without changing the underlying artwork. And in Illustrator, we have two different kinds of effects. If I go up to the Effects menu, we can see that we have Illustrator effects, which are vector-based, as well as Photoshop effects, which are raster-based. So we have a number of different effects that we can use for both raster and vector images. First, I'm going to select the yellow background shape and then shift-click the grayish bound background shape to select both. And then I'll go up to Object and Group. And by grouping these two objects, the effect will be applied to both of them as if they were one object. So now I'll go to Effect, and then down to Stylize, and over to Drop Shadow in the Illustrator Effects section. And the Drop Shadow dialog box comes up. I want to make sure that the mode is Multiply. The opacity is 50%. The X and Y offsets are 0. The blur is 0.25 inches. And that the color box is selected. And we can see how the drop shadow has been applied to the group, so the drop shadow appears around the perimeter, not on each object independently. And if we look in the Appearance panel, we'll see the word Group at the top and the drop shadow effect applied. And the word Contents refers to the content within the group. Now we'll work on editing an effect. So with this group still selected, I'm going to ungroup the group. So I'll just go to Object and Ungroup. And when I do that, the drop shadow disappears because it was applied to the group, not the individual objects. And in the Appearance panel, we can see the term Mixed Appearance because we have two different objects selected. So with these shapes still selected and ungroup, I'll go back to Effect and apply the drop shadow. And now we can see that the drop shadow is applied independently to each object. So with these objects still selected, I'll click the text Drop Shadow in the Appearance panel, and I'll change the opacity to 75%. So now we can see the difference in the way the drop shadow is applied. Next, we'll work with styling text with a warp effect. And we've actually done this before earlier in the semester in Chapter 8. But we'll apply the warp a little bit differently right now. So I'm going to select the text Mountain Ridges and Bike Tours. I'll select both those text objects, and then I'll go to the Effect option in the Appearance panel, or I'll just go to Effect, Warp, and Arc from the main menu. So in the Warp dialog box, I'll change the bend to 65%. And I'll make sure to check Preview to see how that works. And just try choosing some other styles from the Style menu to see how the warp effects work. We've done this before, so I think you understand how that works. But be sure to return to the Arc warp effect and make sure that the horizontal and vertical distortion sliders are set to 0. And then click OK. So we just need to change the Bike Tours warp to go in the right direction. So I'm going to select that text object, and in the Appearance panel, I'll click the Warp Arc text to bring up the dialog box, and I'll change the bend to -65%. So now our text is wrapping around our bicycle tire. But I want to change the text a little bit on mountain ridges. I'm going to select that text, and then I'll click the eye icon next to the warp arc to hide that effect. And with my type tool, I'll just remove the S from ridges and just make it singular. And now I'll turn on that warp effect again. And since I made a change to the length of the text, I'm going to click the Warp Arc text in the Appearance panel and change the percentage of the bend to 64%. And I'll click OK. So that text looks good. Now we'll apply an offset path effect on the dotted line that we earlier applied to that black circle. So I'm going to select the black circle, and I'll click the stroke row in the Appearance panel with the 10-point dash stroke applied to it. And then I'll click the Add New Effect button at the bottom of the panel, and I'll choose Path, Offset Path. There's the offset path. And I'll enter 0.57 inches in the offset field. And that moves the dashed line to the outside of the black circle to kind of simulate a tire tread. And now we can see that the offset path effect is a subset of that stroke layer. So there we've applied a number of effects to our artwork, and again using the Appearance panel to help us do that.